UFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us red.
What's that you said coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the Joe Allon Show. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, Steve. Nice to be here.
Good to see you. We are live and happy to take your questions as we go along in the next hour. Going to look back at the FA Cup match first and foremost, Joe. And FA Cup, always a special competition. Newcastle, of course, got a great history with the FA Cup, especially in those wonderful 1950s, 51, 52, 55. But it was a home game against Bromley at the weekend, live on the BBC iPlayer. Newcastle went a goal behind, which was quite surprising. But Andy Woodman's boys couldn't sustain the pressure, and Newcastle ran out 3-1 winners. So a great result. Newcastle into the next round. And Birmingham, an away trip in the fourth round for Newcastle, lies ahead. But what did you make of that game at the weekend, Joe?
Well, first and foremost, Steve, we had to put out a different side, which we knew. I think it was the worst kept secret in the world. But you get a professional performance, which we did. We went a goal behind. It was a great goal by Congreve. There was a lot of the pundits on the TV saying that, Martin Dubravka could have done better. For me, if you have a look from behind where the lads hit it, right, the ball actually goes 1.5 yards outside the post. And as it comes, he's hit it so well, it's skidded off the turf. And Dubravka's done well to get across. And I mean, to be honest, he hasn't been at fault for many mistakes since he's had the number 1 jersey again, And I thought they were a little bit harsh on Dubravka, who, again, played well. But defensively wise, we weren't really tested. It was a little bit of a shock, but it was just a little blip. I mean, you've got 11 men behind the ball majority of the game, and it's easy turning around and saying, you can break them down. You don't have to do this. You've got to do that. I mean, you look at Tottenham and them. What did I say last week? I said about a banana skin. You asked Brentford about playing Plymouth. and they're out of the cup, and it's as simple as that. And they don't look at what side people are putting out. They look like just like they did when Newcastle got beat off that day at Hereford that we never could stop hearing about. But it's not the side that you put out; it's the fact that it's the club itself, you know, and the fact that we overcome Bromley, and it's okay, you know, to turn around and say, yeah, you could be generous, and you know, you could be praiseworthy, and it's good for to give Bromley that. And they did a credible show. They did great for Andy Woodman, and there was some good performance. The boy that scored, Congreve, I thought he was a good player, and the lad Cheek, who's just come into the Football League, if you like, after being a servant in non-league football for years and years, you know, and he ran his socks off for them, playing in that role up front on his own, which is unforgiving at times. But they did well, yeah, and it's nice to be humble, you know. But like Mikel Arteta, it's nice to be humble, you know. In winning, it's easier, but in defeat, it's even harder to be humble. Mikel Arteta, and let's face it now, Arsenal are in crisis. But we're not going to come to Arsenal until the end of the month. We know that. But let's face it, they've had 2 smashing games, haven't they? And they've been smashed. And then they've got, I think, the derby match at the weekend with Tottenham. So good luck with that. But be careful what you wish for. We've got a good draw in the FA Cup, which was really good because on Monday morning, I thought, champion, because we do know that the media make mistakes because they're human. You know, you get people on, should we say, social media that cast aspersions that aren't right all the time. And some of us know all about that. And at times, you know, you can see that the people's, you know, they can be wrong, yeah. And the reporter on the Monday morning said, Newcastle United roar into the 5th round of the FA Cup. And I thought, champion, we're getting a bye. So anyway, we are in the 4th round, and it's a great draw at Birmingham. I mean, it's not the home draw that you can want all the time, but you're playing a team, you know, that's going to be top of their game because they're flying high in their division. But getting back to the Bromley game, and what for me, the outstanding performer of the whole day for me was Lewis Miley, you know, and I'm looking at that lad, Steve, right, and I'm thinking, you know what? It's all right, people saying, oh, he's going to be a one for the future. I disagree with that, you know. He's a one for now. He's that good for me. The responsibility that he took on the game itself. And yes, you can only beat what's in front of you, right? But when you're coming against, I mean, you asked Tottenham trying to get past that team that they played, you know, and you're looking at the breaking down this, and it's very, very difficult. But he had a maturity, a responsibility on his shoulders, you know. He showed so much ability with his left foot. I mean, at times you're looking at him, and I'm thinking, you know, that ball's attached with a little bit of super glue to his left juke. I mean, he can open a tin of beans with his left foot, but the responsibility, the maturity that he had of just rolling the ball around and looking for where's the little probing pass and what have you. And what can you say about his goals, Steve? Absolutely tremendous. And I saw Eddie Howe saying, you know, Lewis isn't known for his goal scoring ability. Jesus, if that's not goal scoring ability from there, by the way, take your hat off, Lewis. And the great thing about it is he's a northeast lad. He comes from a great family, you know. His interview was absolutely superb. He just ticked all the buttons. I'm looking at him and I'm so proud. And what I'm wanting is Newcastle no more don't have to be a selling club, you know. I'll just say Gascoigne, Beasley and Waddle, and 6 million in the back these days is not enough to cover two players' wages for a year, you know. And you look at Miley, and yes, it was great for Eddie. Yes, he took a Sula off. We'll come to that. But it was great for Eddie to keep Lewis on, to get that 90 minutes under his belt. And he looked great. I just thought he was the difference in the team. And I was ever so pleased for him. And he should be mightily proud of himself. So a job well done. They did what they had to do. And onwards and upwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity, of course, when you're playing lower league opposition to give a run out to some players who wouldn't normally be in that starting 11. And you've mentioned Lewis Miley. Lloyd Kelly got a game at the back. How did you think he did?
Well, they didn't have much to do, you know, but what they had to do, I mean, he give the ball away one mistake, that sticks in my head. But at the end of the day, they weren't really, under pressure, it was a case of getting the ball. You know what I would have liked to see more from the centre halves, and Lloyd Kelly was trying a little bit, but I would have liked to see Fabian do, because he's good at it, was to join in a little bit more and really overpower them, because we only had one player to take care of at the back, and that was Michael Cheek, who was basically running his absolutely kahunas off. And he gave a great performance as a Lord striker up there. But at the same time, that's when you've got, Kieran Trippier was trying his utmost to get forward and join in and help in. And obviously, at left back, Target's coming back for his first game in a long time. I thought he did very well. All the players did well. But it's that thing of breaking down the opposition, no matter where they come from. That 11 players behind the ball is a hard thing to break down. And I thought Newcastle United did it fabulously. The players, God bless them, the Bromley players, they must have been looking when you've got Anthony Gordon, you've got Tonali, and you've got Bruno warming up and thinking, Christ, these are substitutes that's coming on. Oh, man. But it was a case for me of how many we were going to get and how we were going to break them down, But there was, out of the 3 goals, 3 terrific goals. 1, a great goal to start with by Lewis. 2, Anthony Gordon having the professionalism. It's all right saying you've got the penalty and all that. You've still got it. He went through his routine. He's missed the pen, as we know, against Everton, which hurt him. But you know what? He took it away. No goalkeeper would have stopped that. And Asule's goal, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But absolutely delighted for that youngster as well. And 3 magnificent goals.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned Asula. I do laugh because when the press talk about him, it's Otala, it's Asula, it's another one of those people who's got numerous ways of pronouncing his name. I think Asula is better because it rhymes with a song that everybody sings at the game. But it was a hell of a strike. The way that he celebrated it was that proverbial monkey off his back, because whenever you're a striker, you want to get your first goal, and that meant so much to him. It was a hell of a strike as well, Joe.
It was his ability as well, Steve, Yeah. His ability when he's run and he's done a beautiful trick as well. And the strike was so sweet. It nearly took the net off. And I'm delighted for him, because getting that first goal for him for the club is a massive thing for the lad. And I thought he worked his socks off well, but I can understand why Eddie took him off, because he took him off for Anthony to do that role and keep Lewis Miley on. And Lewis Miley has now had the chance to play with Bruno and Tonali in the team again. And it just maybe be saying, in Eddie's mind, can I play the 3 of them together? That's what I was thinking when he took Asula off, thinking of maybe what sort of a formation could I do with Lewis Miley? Because, there's clubs, and I'm telling you this as a fact, as I know, there's people are sitting up and taking notice of Lewis Miley. And we are not letting them go. And it's as simple as that. And I think, yes, he'll only get better and he'll get stronger and he'll get wiser. But what you're getting is a boy that's coming into the team now. And what a great place to learn your trade in a midfield like that, training with them guys every day as well, And it's fabulous for Lewis Miley, but it's great for the squad as well, because not only that, we've got with 2 players that were suspended against the Arsenal. And we've got them coming back into the squad again for the game on at the weekend. The game tomorrow night against Wolverhampton Wanderers, which will be a different game again altogether, because it's a different manager and a different mindset for Wolves. But it's a massive squad that Eddie's got with the injuries all coming back. And it's the nice headache that a manager's got, because it's down to him to pick the team to win the match for tomorrow night,
Yeah, do you think Asula's got a chance of, making his mark in the Premier League? Yeah, that was a great goal. It was against Bromley. Obviously, he played almost 90 minutes against Wimbledon, didn't score. Is he a striker, Joe? You've got a good nous for players. Is he a striker? Or could he do a job on the right wing? With that kind of finish on the right wing, we're desperate for one. What do you think Eddie's going to do with him? And he's a big lad, as Jack would have said, isn't he, as well? What in your mind would be the right thing for Asula just after seeing him a couple of times?
Well, he's learning his trade, and the thing is, he's learning his trade off the. If he's going to come into this team, he's got to play the role that Alexander Isak's playing.
Yeah.
So he's got to learn his trade, but he's learning his trade pretty much like me as a kid with Pedro and Waddler, you know. You're playing with forwards that are the world-class players, you know, absolutely world-class players. And in Isak, he is pretty much the top striker in Europe at the minute. And he's done that on merit. So if Asulik can train with him every day and look and see, like, if he gets to come into the team and Isak gets injured, because he's not going to play unless there is an injury. But if he comes in, he has to know the role that he's got to do, and he's got to play that role. And I think that's fine, because I still think we need to bring more forwards at the club, at least one, you know. And also we need in this deadline, if possible, just to get the numbers up again, you know, because this is the time. It's been tried and tested. You strengthen your team that's doing well when you're doing well. You don't buy players because you're doing badly, because that is like the last throw of the dice carry on. You strengthen your team when you're doing well. And hey, what a run we've been on, Steve. This is the time to strengthen now, make that push for the Champions League, win this cup, and go as far as we can in the FA Cup, you know. And it's great at the minute because the confidence is exuberant. I mean, every player that came in for the Bromley game did themselves justice, did themselves really well. And you know, that's what you want at the football club. You want players knocking on the manager's door saying, I'm here when you want this, I'm here and I'm ready. And you want people pushing people saying, you can't leave me out. Make it impossible for the manager to leave you out. And Lewis Miley's given Eddie a bit of a headache, I'll tell you that, because I just think the more and more I see of the lad, and he's had a long-term injury and he's come back from it, and he's come back better. You said that there'd been talk that he was going to be better than he was, and I think he really looked against it. And I'm not bothered whether it was Bromley or it was Borussia Mönchengladbach, you know. But at the end of the day, you can only beat what's in front of you and play with that maturity and the charisma that he had, the composure. You know, you look at him; he's 18 years of age. You know, it's fantastic. It's brilliant.
It is. It's funny you talk about knocking on managers' doors. Somebody on X this week sent me a tweet, and I did retweet it. There was a bit of profanity in it, but it was worth it because it was a Cloughie story, and it was Justin Fashanu who, of course, signed for Nottingham Forest. The person who was telling the story, I think it was Mark Crossley, and he tells a great story about just knocking on the door and seeing Cloughie, and apparently he'd gone along, hadn't been getting his game, and Cloughie, in no uncertain terms, told him that he couldn't trap a ball, he couldn't control a ball, and that Norwich were interested in taking him back. And he thinks that he should consider it. Maybe take a couple of days and consider it. So Justin Fashanu does just that. Off he goes. Comes back a couple of days later, knocks on the manager's door. Brian Clough's in there, and he goes, I've had a little bit of a think, Gaffer, and I've been speaking to God. And God says I should stay here and fight for my place. And Cloughie said, there's only one God in Nottingham, young man, and he thinks you should F off back to Norwich.
Brilliant. Love it.
Classic.
The other thing is as well, by the way, with Brian Clough, he signed Gary Megson from Newcastle United, paid about £250,000 for him, and said the same thing. He couldn't trap the ball, and he never played him for 10 games. But you know what Cloughie was famous for as well? He said, I'm not the best manager in the world, but I'm definitely in the top one.
Cloughie, some great stories from him. Just want to talk about the FA Cup, Joe, and there has been changes over the years. You know, I'll still never forgive Manchester United for not playing in it that year, which I think was really disrespectful to the great trophy. This year they've stopped the replays, so now you know Bromley had to manage to keep it level. As we know, they would have had to go to extra time and then penalties. There's no chance of that return to the away fixture, which I was speaking to Bromley fans. They reckon that little cup run this year is netted them in the region of £1 million, which will go a long way to building their new stand, which they're busy doing at this moment in time. But does this take away a bit of the magic of the FA Cup now, Joe, not having the replays, or do you agree with that?
No, I agree. It's definitely a miss because the replays in itself were an occasion. I mean, we've seen FA Cup finals in replays, and they were great. You know, there was some great FA Cup final replays. I can remember being a youngster and being so excited about it. You know, I mean, there was once I got married and on the night time of the wedding, there was the FA Cup final replay, and she wanted to know why I was watching the telly. But that's a true story as well. That was Man United that year against Oldham. But the other thing about the FA Cup is obviously if your minnow, if you like, gets drawn away against the Newcastle United or a Liverpool like Accrington Stanley, I mean, you've also got Tamworth, who got Tottenham at the home tie, and they were saying that was their best chance, but financially, if it had been at Tottenham, that would have been their £1 million. You know, so you cannot have it both ways at the same time. But what with the television money, and I don't know, but I do think there is a lot of that passion and the excitement and the wonder of the FA Cup, you know, and that's definitely missing. As regarding Man United's decision to do that as well, I mean, that was a disgrace. I thought they should have had a year's ban off that for the disrespect of it, you know, to the competition. But you know, that's football at the end of the day. It's changing every other day. I have to say a mention, because I probably haven't heard it yet, but we'll be hearing it for ages. The other reason why Eddie did the substitutes, he brought on young Zanussi, you know, which was obviously a move conjuring up and applying to science, and it'll not be the first time you hear that, but it was good to see a 16-year-old coming on and getting his bow in the first team, because it tells me that people behind the scenes doing what I love about the youth team at the club, the youth people coming through, you know, and the youngsters coming through and getting the chance. And it's great to see a couple of the players like that, especially him. I think he was up there with being one of the youngest players ever to play in a black and white shirt, you know, and it's great for him. And just the occasion itself for him was fabulous. So I was really pleased to see that, you know.
FA Cup memories, Joe? I mean, you have played in the FA Cup. Have you got any special memories from playing in it yourself? Is there a goal that stands out or a game that stands out that you played in?
Yeah, I mean, I scored a couple of hat-tricks in the FA Cup in the first rounds, you know, for Hartlepool and Brentford. So that was nice. But I played at Hartlepool and we drew Bournemouth. And Bournemouth were managed by Harry Redknapp, and we had them at home at the Victoria Ground, that is, it used to be. I don't know what they call it these days. But anyway, we get a 1-1 draw and we go back to Bournemouth, and we're centre half. One of my close friends, Paul Baker, was playing centre half as opposed to playing centre forward. And on that night, I just remember I scored 2 goals and we ended up getting beat 5-2, but we scored 3 own goals in the game. And if we went through, because at one stage we were back to 2-2, if we went through, Hartlepool would have played Manchester United or Old Trafford live on the telly. And that was about the closest I ever got to getting to the 5th round of the FA Cup, apart from with Chelsea, where I hastily I was 15th man that day, and there was 2 subs. We played Sunderland at Roker Park, and they scored in the 86th minute and knocked Chelsea out, and that was in the quarterfinals. And I'm just glad I wasn't part of the 14 that day.
Good crack. Just finishing off really on the FA Cup, it did cost us an injury. Harvey Barnes confirmed that he's out for a month now, crossing the ball just before he went off at half time. And 4 weeks out for Barnes. It's disappointing because he had that long period on the sidelines with that foot injury, and you know he's come back in. He's certainly one of those that splits the supporters. You know, some people think, you know, he's a great player, we should keep a hold of him. Other people think if it's a player that's going to help PSR, he could bring in a few quid for Newcastle and help Newcastle, you know, raise some money to go and spend on other people. But the thigh strain is what's going to keep him out, Joe. It's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, injuries happen in football, Steve. We've got to know that. It's part and parcel of the game, you know, and sometimes they can't be helped. As regarding Harvey, I mean, he's a flair player, and what's going to happen to him, I think, in his Newcastle career is possibly when he starts, we don't see the best of him. And yes, he chips in with goals, and 9 times out of 10, when he's chipping in with the goals, he's making a difference in the game by coming on as a substitute, you know, and I see him in that role, especially with the wide players that we've got and the way Eddie chops and changes, I don't think sometimes I'm thinking, if Anthony Gordon was injured or suspended, would Harvey Barnes come straight in for Anthony Gordon? Or would Eddie flick it about a bit because Joe can play that way, Big Joe? And then you've also got Willock, you've got Murphy, you've got, a richness on the right-hand side now with Trippier and Livramento, whereas at the start of the season, we're looking who's going to play here, who's going to play there. With people getting fit, we're getting with numbers up, but I would pray that we do bring a couple of new faces in at the deadline. But as regarding Harvey, I still think he's got a part to play at the football club. And you will get good money for him, definitely, about that if you want to get shot of him. But at the minute, I don't see a reason why we should get away, because I think he does more good than harm for her. And he's another string to a bow to bring on and change a game of football. And that's what you want. You want the dynamic to change with a substitute. You don't want a substitute just to come on and do nothing. You want it to affect the game, And I think when Harvey Barnes does that, he affects the game, but possibly not as much as what he started. But there again, some players like to have a run in the side of 5 and 6 games, which is fair enough. But with the quality of players that we've got and the Premier League being such a results-based business, you're not getting that security of 5 and 6 games anymore,
Yeah, got a question in from Stephen Kennedy, which I'll take after the break because it's about the Wolves match tomorrow night. A couple of about transfers. Tim says, question about Joe, what's his take on the endless stories from the media and Arsenal trying to unsettle Isaac?
Yeah, I mean, it's rubbish for me. I mean, one, I don't think for a start that Arsenal can afford Alexander Isak. I really don't. And if they come up with a ridiculous amount, Eddie should do what Palace done with the centre half with us and just keep putting it up 10 million. And the Sharp gets sick about it. Plus, the lad himself would want fortunes to go to Arsenal. And I don't think I think they've always had a wage structure in place, even for the top players that they've had.
There's only 5 teams, Joe. There's only 5 teams. There's only 5 teams in the world who could afford them for me.
For sure.
And Arsenal's not one of them.
I don't see Arsenal as being one of them either, mate.
Craig Hope put one out today, basically saying, because Gabriel Jesus, it's unfortunate for him, it's an ACL, so he's now out for the rest of the season. Arsenal's injury problems mounted up. They were struggling without a centre forward in the first place. Kai Havertz certainly not the answer. He's been getting like undeserved stick online from people to the point where they've been like making threats to his family, etc. Arteta's calling for action on that kind of situation, and rightly so. But yeah, Arsenal are in a bit of a mess now with regards to strikers. But they couldn't afford him, Joe. They couldn't afford him.
No.
I genuinely only think the teams who could afford him, which would be attractive to Alexander Isak, are the likes of Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. Teams who've got a bit of money who can just go and spend what they want. And I think that's the only place that he would go as well, because it's Champions League football. I think the key for Newcastle is European football next season. They've got no issue keeping a hold of these players. They don't need to sell them. And Eddie was asked again about transfers today in his press conference. He was asked about Almiron being linked to a move to America. He categorically denied that and said, as far as I'm concerned, he's here to stay and he's busy training and there's no link. Dubravka looks like he's going nowhere now. So that, and more or less it all led to another journalist saying, would it be a success if nobody went in and nobody came out? And he says, that's what we're heading towards. He says, yeah, I think that probably, he more or less said that would be ideal. And it's what I said to you the other week, it's that dressing room kind of mentality, isn't it, that they've built up this wonderful atmosphere in the dressing room, and anybody coming in or going out is going to affect that, and I don't think they want to risk it. And Callum Wilson, for me, is our biggest hope. If we can get him fit and he can get at least 10 games out of him this season, I think that will dictate where we end up, Joe, because I think if Isak does need a break or he is out for a week or two, then at least we're going to have Callum Wilson who can come in, who's an out-and-out number 9 who can do the job,
It is. I'd even forgotten about Callum, and I'm sorry about that. But, is he injured at the minute? Is he in for a transfer? Is he available for transfer? I don't know. But certainly a fit Callum Wilson with his goals for games ratio is always going to be a plus for you. So, you know, you don't want to be getting rid of people just for the sake of getting rid of them. I mean, if apparently we don't need the money with our owners, we don't need to sell people and get rid of them. Bring players in, bring more in, you know.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Halfway through the show, time for the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Contact them at their website, skipsandbins.com, or email www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. Email them info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges, all excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. Their website is media-arts.co.uk. And we're also available as a podcast. You can find us on Sports Social, Podcast Network, iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up that likes each video, and click share to share to your social media. Some Newcastle United events coming up. An evening with the entertainers, 24th of January 2025. Box office number is 0191 243 1171. Or website, Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. An evening with Lee Clark takes place on the 31st of January at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are available on Voucher or from newcastlelegends.com. An afternoon with Celeste Ferdinand takes place on the 6th of April 2025, 12 p.m. till 4 p.m, and that's at the O2 City Hall in Newcastle. Tickets from www.ticketmaster.co.uk or from Voucher. And did you get a book voucher for Christmas? Then why not buy The Entertainers, 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy by Will Scott. Priced $18.99, also available from newcastlelegends.com.
And just looking at that book, if you get onto Amazon or you get onto newcastlelegends.com tonight, we have got some books signed by Peter Beardsley. Fantastic talking the other night with Joe and with Gibbo.
Can I just
he signed a few for us, so get on now. We've only got about 15 and 16 of them left. Please get on. Go on, Joe.
Sorry, mate. I just wanted to say about Pedro and that do, you know. One, congratulations to you and well done for putting another great show on, right? I thought Peter Beardsley and John Gibson were absolutely fantastic. But you know what? Pedro, right? He made every one of them fans, right, welcome that night, right? And not only autographs, photographs, conversations. He was the last person out of that place. I walked up to the car with him, right? He was brilliant at the show. The stories were brilliant. You know, it was fantastic. And well done to Lilac Lane and the band as well. Your little new band coming through from the Northeast were great. But Pedro signing photographs and outside is signing autographs and giving photographs to people. He's always been the most down-to-earth player. Steve, honestly, one of the greatest players that's ever pulled a black and white shirt on, right? And so humble, man. And, you know, when I was a kid and what have you, I'm watching Peter Beardsley helping the bus driver putting skips on the bus, you know, and like going to the shop for players to get them sweets and magazines and things like that. That's the type of bloke that he is, you know. And it's a bloke that needs to be around Newcastle United because as an ambassador, we should revere our legends, you know. And Peter Beardsley is a legend at Newcastle United. And honestly, I really, really loved seeing him. And well done for you for putting that show on. It was brilliant.
Yeah, great stuff. Always good to see Peter. And thank you, Lilac Lane. Had a great night as well. Peter quite liked them. So if you haven't already, follow Lilac Lane on Facebook. Lots to come from them this year. Lots of people talking about Isaac. Sky Sports have got a poll on their website about which striker Arsenal should sign. It's really disrespectful to us. Dave about Callum Wilson. He's played 4 games this season. Well, 4 appearances. Roger says, I still think this window is an opportunity to improve. It's a missed one if we don't. I think you're talking about the transfers there, Roger. We've got no money, mate. We can't. And of course, the PSR announcement today means that nobody is going to get points deducted, which is good news. But that means that Newcastle, following that kind of strict regime that they did in the summer, has paid dividends. Gary says, Ian, Sky tried to make news rather than report it, the moving pictures version of the Sun newspaper. And Les says it's only to be expected from Sky Sports. Let's face it, they even hound managers out of jobs. It's not journalism, just sensationalism, in my opinion, and the hell with the humans involved. Ian says the only people linking Isaac are Arsenal's deluded fan base because he looks and plays like Thierry Henry. Sky Sports have jumped on the bandwagon. And any other comments? Oh, yeah, Tim Kent says Pedro's a top legend in all respects. Ian repeats those sentiments as well. And Tim says he saw Peter play for the Whitecaps, Vancouver, of course, in 1981. Fantastic, Tim. I bet Pedro would probably enjoy a chat with you about that. Isaac has 3 years on his deal, but reckon if we secure Europe, he'll get an improved option. I would imagine so. And Mark says Beardsley's an absolute legend. The club need to make amends with him. He's a gentleman, and it's a disgrace their stance towards him. Mark, you couldn't have said anything better than we could. That is true. The club need to get Peter Beardsley involved at the club sooner rather than later. Gary says a lot of chatter today, and it's just chatter that Fenerbahce are in talks over Kelly. I'd be very surprised if they let anybody go, Gary. I really would be, especially him. Tim asks, Joe, what is your funniest story regarding Gazza? There's got to be a lot. I know we've had conversations about Gazza on here and talked about Gazza. He certainly seems as if he's in a good place at the minute. You've always got a story, Joe. The trick is trying to remember a story you probably haven't told on here.
Yeah.
You know? Is there anything that you can think of that jumps?
The one that one I haven't done on this show, but if anybody hasn't seen it, was brilliant just because of the fact that it just sums Gazza up in his mischievousness as a 16-year-old, you know. And there used to be a cafe that would stop in, and it was halfway between Benwell and St James's Park, you know. And we used to go into this cafe and get beans on toast or something like that, or a piece of quiche, you know, and we'd get it for £1 off the lasses. And a lot of the first team players used to use this cafe. But we went in, and it always used to be a place where you could get pretty much, shall we say, upmarket Newcastle United ladies, you know. They're ones that... probably the ones before ladies do lunch, you know, that idea. So they've pulled up in a fancy car and all that, and they've probably got the leather pants on and what have you, but they're in having like a morning cup of coffee and a scone, shall we say. Anyway, there was a couple of ladies were in one day wearing with kit, getting, you know, the beans on toast as quick as we can down with necks to get down to the ground. And there was a little laddie at the table, Steve, and obviously Gazza's giving it and all that carry on, and the lads copying him, you know. And the band must have been, I would have said, 3-year-old, you know. And Gazza picks up the pepper pot, and he puts the pepper pot on his hand like that, you know. And the laddie gets the pepper pot and puts it on his hand like that. And Gazza licks his finger and puts his finger on the pepper on his hand. The laddie does exactly the same and puts his finger on the lad. Gazza uses a different finger and puts it in his mouth. The laddie uses the same finger that's got the pepper on, puts it in his mouth, goes bright red and screams the bloody place down. Now, that was Paul Gascoigne at his funniest, and that's probably the only ones that we can broadcast at this time of the day.
I mentioned earlier there just about the PSR situation, Joe. The announcement was a positive one for everybody. I did happen to laugh when it was Ben Jacobs' X account that I found the first announcement on, and then subsequently everybody else started reporting on it. Chelsea, no case to answer. I mean, you know, we've seen them selling hotels and all of that kind of stuff, but clearly, you know, they've ticked all the boxes, done all the right things. But I guess the positivity is we just like to focus on Newcastle on here. Newcastle, no breaches of FFP, no breaches of PSR, no points deduction. So I guess that's a positive. And the sooner they change these rules, the better, because at the moment it's just not it's an unfair playing field.
Totally agree with you, Stephen. I mean, I get so bored listening to it, but you have to take a little bit of interest in it. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and they come up with these rules and factions, and they get lawyers on to try and go after this club and that club. And I just think about, like, the injustice that has been to clubs in the past that have had deductions in points, and some of the ones that's guilty, Man City's, in my opinion, are going to get away with it, but this is the way football is. I mean, I don't make the rules up. In fact, I don't know half the rules. That is these days, I mean, I get educated every time I watch a game, because I'll discover another rule. Gone were the days when it was just 11-11 and one ball and a referee, mate.
Good old days, the good old days. We've got a game tomorrow night. Newcastle United are back in Premier League action, and we take on Wolverhampton Wanderers. And that was the question that Stephen Kennedy asked us at the start of the night. He says, a question for Joe. I'm wary of tomorrow's visit of Wolves. It's Stockholm Syndrome. When in logical terms, we should make easy work of it. How did Joe prepare for this type of scenario? And how should the squad prepare and react? Do you think for the rest of the season, Eddie will have them all at it?
No, but the thing about it is you can only beat the opposition, and you prepare for every single game exactly the same way, It doesn't care who you play. I mean, if you get lackadaisical, that's when the problems come in. I mean, I've mentioned before that I was on the end of one of them banana skins when Port Vale were in what you call a championship now, and Scarborough were non-league, and we got beat 2-1 at Scarborough and dumped out the cup, And yet, you don't prepare for the game. You don't go out there with the meaning to play badly. The one thing I will say, and yes, I understand about the Stockholm Syndrome, the one thing I will say about this Wolverhampton Wanderers team, and I'll come to you in a minute, Steve, I want to ask you about it, but Wolverhampton Wanderers have had a little bit of a resurgence after the sacking of Gary O'Neill. He got, parted company, relieved of his duties, and now this new bloke seemed to be getting a tangible result every time they go out in a strip. And Wolverhampton Wanderers, I mean, you were at the game at Molineux when we played away from home. What do you think of the two difference in the sides? I mean, I felt we were comfortable when we beat Wolves that day away from home, but now under this resurgence a bit, we've got to probably look at it a little bit more different and still go out with that attitude of what I would say closing down from the front, but not just as a one, as a unit, as you go all across the park and around the park, and you've got to look at their players that really are match winners for them. And defensively, we'll have to be really on song that way as well. But what do you think about, I mean, the Wolves' performance? You were there. We played really well, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Newcastle's trip to Molineux over the last few seasons has been an enjoyable one. We've got a pal who lives down that way, Andy, who's a Wolves fan. I often meet up with him, pre-match, and Newcastle were comfortable, deserved the win, and Wolves are coming to St James's Park tomorrow with a little bit of a run, a little bit of a run under, under this new manager. Gary O'Neill, who did a great job there, is now departed, and they've got Vitor Pereira in as the manager. And since his 2-1 success since Newcastle's 2-1 win at Molineux, the much-travelled Portuguese manager has lost just one of his first 5 games. So the big pushing thing for us is that they've only taken 9 points from 30 on the road, and they've conceded 22 goals, Joe, which is the second worst in the division, only to Leicester, I believe. I think they've conceded 27. So really, for me, I'm positive about this game. I think players will come in. He mentioned today, Eddie Howe mentioned today that, there'll be little checks on Isak and Botman in particular, but he didn't expect them to be any problems. He was asked, what's what decision have you made, or is it a tough decision at the centre half? Well, I'm pretty sure it will be a tough decision. Is it Byrne and Shaw? Is it Botman and Byrne? Is it Botman and Shaw? What's the combo he's going to go for in the middle? But I wouldn't be surprised to see Botman on the bench and then probably go with Byrne and Shaw tomorrow. If there's any doubts that Botman has had a little reaction to something, it would be ludicrous to risk him at this stage. And, you've got him to come on if you need him. But Isak, I think, will be fit. He'll be chomping at the bit, Joe, to play tomorrow, because he's got a club record he could beat, which is eight Premier League goals in 8 Premier League games, held at this moment in time by 2 people. Joe Willock, of course, who's still at the club, and Sir Alan Shearer.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, Steve, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers that'll be crapping themselves coming to St James's Park, not us. I mean, we're on this run. Let's get it right. We are the form team in the country. We're flying at the minute, and the difference is, as well, this run of games that's coming through now, you've got Wolverhampton Wanderers, Bournemouth, Southampton away, and the Arsenal. Them 4 games that we can I can quite easily see us, not easily win them, but easily see wins out of every single game. And you're going into it with such a confidence. You've beaten Arsenal, at the Emirates, and not many people go to Arsenal and win. And that's in years. I mean, they were unbeaten for donkeys before we beat them, And when you're playing at home at St James's Park, and I think that air of confidence that you say, and that, that Anthony Gordon was saying in the dressing room, that confidence that just breathes, and it goes from player to player, and the crowd feel it, and everybody gets that feeling, that, we're going to make this as tough and as hard for this opposition as possible, and you take one game as it comes, and I understand that, but at the same time, I can still be happy and be exuberant with the fact that we're going in as confident, really at the top of our game,
Yeah. Who would you play centre half, Joe?
That's a great question, because I would have to bring Shaw back to play with Dan Byrne, because just the fact, what you mentioned, the amount of games that Shaw's played with Dan Byrne, and they have been our solid centre halves for the majority of the season. And just because Fabian lost his place because of suspension, it didn't mean, since we went on this run, it's not coincidental in any way, the fact that Fabian Shaw's played really, really well as well, and how many clean sheets we've had in that defence, with 2 fullbacks, I think, are starting to pick themselves now, in Livramento and Hall. I mean, the goalkeeping thing, Dubravka's got the jersey at the minute. Nick Pope's got to get it back. You can't drop a goalkeeper that's, not losing matches and dropping, ricks, if you like. And the 2 centre-halves that have done phenomenally well in this run is Dan Byrne and Shaw. But in Botman, you've got a hell of a player. We know we've got a hell of a player. But maybe it's like you said, Steve, and I agree with you. Treat him with kid gloves, He has been out for a bloody long time, And his body's going to be the adrenaline for the first couple of games. That gets you through. But then when you're getting like a cramp and things like that, that's just like your body saying, hang on a minute, I might have to take a little bit of a rest here. I might have to just let the body recover. And it's not going to be a big problem playing Dan Byrne and Fabian Shaw. It's not going to be a problem. But at the same time, if Eddie makes the decision, that's what he's get. That's why Eddie gets paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
His decision to make.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Don't forget as well, you can email us these days, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. We are in the process of having a new website built as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you missed it earlier, don't forget as well, we've got, somebody's just bought one actually, we've got about 19 books it is, of the Entertainers books left with Peter's signature on. Just want to thank Peter for signing them for us. And Bill Scott, of course, the author, will be back in the country next week, and looking forward to catching up with him. Don't forget, tomorrow the food bank will be at the usual place on Strawberry Place, and any cash donations, Newcastle United director Jamie Rubin will be matching those, so well worth sticking some money in the bucket if you're up there. So Joe, give us a prediction for tomorrow night.
Well, I say we're winning, and I say we're winning quite comfortably, as in 2-0. If Isak plays, I believe he'll score. just because he's in this reign of form and as a forward. When you're going like that, I'm not going to turn around and say he's not going to score. So I'm behind him 100%. Alexander Isak to score. Probably not the first goal, but he'll definitely score on the night and we'll win 2-0.
Okay, I'm going to go for a 3-0 win tomorrow night as well. I do think Newcastle will win tomorrow night. Gary, no news on Kraft, nothing mentioned in the press conference, although the press conference before the last game, he was apparently back in training, so he shouldn't be too far away from making a first-team appearance as and when required. At the weekend, Newcastle take on Bournemouth, and again, 12:30 kickoff. Like tomorrow night, it's live on TNT Sports. Can't really give you too much info on Bournemouth's squad at the moment. It has been affected by injuries. Evan Nielsen and Enes Unal are both sidelined for the immediate future. Bournemouth have also recalled former Sheffield United striker Daniel Jefferson from his loan at Watford, while Max Aarons has moved on loan to Valencia. Ahead of their trip to Tyneside, Bournemouth visit Chelsea tonight. If they avoid defeat at Stamford Bridge, that will extend their unbeaten run in league and cup matches to an impressive 10 games. Referee for that game is Stuart Atwell. It'll be his second appointment of the season, looking after a Newcastle game. The last one was the 4-0 win against Ipswich Town. VAR is Peter Banks on Saturday. Tougher prospect, Bournemouth. These are a little bit of a bogey team for us. We drew 2-2 with them last season. A game we should have won. Gordon got a penalty. Richie scored. The season before that, we won 1-0. Season before that was 1-1. Isak penalty. We won 2-1. We'll get the points, but we've got to earn them. We've really got to earn them. It's always a tough game, and it looks like it'll be tough again with the kind of run they're on, Joe.
Yeah, they've done well, Bournemouth. I mean, you can't take it away from them. I like the manager. I think the manager's good. He's very respectful. But the fact is, Steve, I'm not bothered about anybody. The Bournemouths and the Wolverhamptons, the Arsenals and the Liverpools, they don't worry me at St James's Park. I've watched most of the games with you. And even Liverpool that night, I still think that we won that game, and we could have won it if we'd never been stopped in the last minute. But anyway, that's not sour grapes. That's saying that we're playing and competing with the best teams in the country, So Bournemouth and Wolves will be looking over their shoulders thinking they've got to come to St James's Park in the run we're on and the players we've got. So let them worry about us and put it back at them, because we're at St James's Park. We're the ones with the greatest 12th man in the history of football. Our crowd, we've got them as well, So we're not fearful for anybody at the minute. And this confidence is a confidence, like you say, that Anthony Gordon spoke about, that goes from player to player. And it's a great feeling to have. And to be going out there, they've got nothing to fear whatsoever. So
a prediction for the Bournemouth game, Joe?
We'll win that game as well, but we'll probably win it 3-1. But at the same time, I've got 3-1 for the FA Cup game. If we went on, we would have won by 3 clear goals easily, but I thought we took the foot off the gas. What we've got to do, especially in these coming games, is when we get that in front bit of the 2-0, it's vitally important at 2-0, Steve, right? Like it is at the Arsenal match at the minute, because the Arsenal match is half time. But that next goal, that third goal, has always been, it's not the first goal that's the most important goal in football. It's the third goal. Whoever scores the third goal, if you're going 3-0 up, or you come back to 2-1, at 2-1 for both sides, you're always in the game, right? But at 3-0, it should be job done. So, let's get into the habit of finishing teams off. I know we were quite comfortable against Bromley and it was 3-1 and they had 11 men camped out. They parked the bus, say what you want, and it was a credit to them. But you're going to get teams coming to St James's Park that are going to park the bus, because we're an attacking side and a flair side. And we might need a Lewis Miley to come off the bench and a little bit of magic, like a 35-yard screamer in the top corner. That would do me.
I love it. Tim says, thank you, lads. Great watch. Stephen Kennedy says, get on, Joe. I can listen to you for hours. And Tom says, great show tonight, lads. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget, there are some Premier League games tonight. Brentford take on Man City, West Ham, Fulham, Chelsea, Bournemouth, And Forest Liverpool is probably the most intriguing game tonight because lots of people comparing Forest's rise to Leicester when they won the Premier League, and this is an acid test for them. If they can get a result tonight against Liverpool, do the double over them, then maybe people might start believing that is a chance that Forest could actually do something. Love the positivity, Joe. That's what I love to hear. Ice, I never ever say his name, Joe, because you can see where it's going. I see when the Carabao Cup final, Geordies, you'll never walk alone, he says. Third goal, aim, Joe. Fantastic, says Roger. I'd love to see Forest beat Liverpool, says Tom. Mark Byers will give you this. He says, quick question, Joe. You can only have one in your team. Beardsley, Gazza or Shearer?
Oh, wow. Well, actually, Gazza's middle name's Beardsley and his surname was Shearer. So I've gone for Gascoigne, Beardsley, Shearer. I'm not picking one of them. They're all absolutely fabulous. They're all, you're talking 3 world-class players. Oh, my God. We could have had them in the same team.
I'm sorry. God. I know Peter watches the show on a regular basis, so I'm saying Peter Beardsley. That's you. That's you in the bad books.
Oh, I thought you said who was my favourite player. It was Peter Beardsley. Pedro every day of the week. Pedro. And I'm not joking.
Thanks to everybody for watching. Great night. I have pre-recorded Talk of the Two tomorrow, so for those of you who won't be going to the match, you get your fix of NUFC Matters 6 o'clock tomorrow, and then I'm back live on Thursday with Gibbo to look back at the Wolves game. Thanks, Joe, and see you next week.
See you later, creepy crawly. Pedro.